Hello and welcome again to the Subjective Space with me, Sindhu Rajasekharan. Today's guest is Ghazala Wahab, who is an award-winning author and editor at Force, a magazine on national security and defense. Her book, Born a Muslim, Some Truths About Islam in India, won the Tata Lit Live Award and the Attagalata Book Prize. She's also the author of Dragon on Our Doorstep, Managing China Through Military Power. Her latest book is the Hindi Heartland, which we'll be talking about today. So thank you so much for joining me, Ghazala.
Thank you so much for asking me, Sindhu. It's a great pleasure.
So I have a lot of questions for you, obviously, but let's start by talking about your latest and very timely book, The Hindi Heartland. So as you know, I've told you I'm Tamil. I've always been fascinated by this part of India, right? Because it's not something that I easily understand, and there's a lot of nuance there. And as the blurb to your book points out, centuries of war, conquests, invasions, political movements, and religious unrest have made the heartland a place of immense paradox. So, if you could tell me a little bit about this to start with, and how it is that despite its extraordinary and timeless religious heritage, some of the country's most revered spiritual leaders were born here, and it is home to innumerable shrines and places of pilgrimage. It has also witnessed some of the worst communal riots in the country and has been troubled by long running divisive sectarian politics.
See, the peculiarity of the Hindi heartland comes from its geography. If you see this northern part of India, it is completely land bound. Uh, so, from to the northwest of the country, we have Pakistan. Once upon a time, it was part of India. And then adjoining Pakistan, you have Afghanistan and the rest of Central Asia, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan. All of this connects with this region by land. Towards the west, southwest, you have Iran. And all of this is, despite the fact that there were very high mountains, but there were mountain passes, a lot of mountain passes through this entire range. So whether you have Hindu Kush range or your Himalayan range of, everything here. So you have a lot of travel which happened for centuries before, even the invasions happened. So this part was part of what is famously now called the Silk Route. So from China till Europe, through Central Asia and through North India, there were a lot of routes. There were a lot of sub routes where people would be part of this traveling caravans which are moving in this area. So the influences from outside and information about each other was commonplace. So even if there were, people trying to make their own fortune, let's say in Afghanistan or in Uzbekistan, wherever, they were aware of this very vast and rich, agriculturally rich, fertile region. And geography was one part. The other part was the politics of this region. There were no great empires. There were no great unified rule of anybody. I'm talking of the early medieval period or period 10th, 11th century onwards. So it was not it was not a very great impediment for anybody who was coming from the west, northwest, to make a fortune in this part of the land or this part of India. At that time, there was no nation state, but whatever it was.
Yeah.
So whatever it was. So that is why this region has been extremely open to external coming-ins, influences, as well as disseminating its own influences on the other towards the west. So I think when we talk about this being a very volatile region, the volatility came much later, when people became conscious of the fact that somebody is coming in and it's invading us or suppressing us. But for a very long period of time, it was very commonplace for outsiders to come and establish their reign in India. I have noted in my book, the chapter on the Delhi Sultanate, I have quoted from a Sanskrit, the scriptures, where they talk about the rule of Qutbuddin Aibak,
Mm-hmm.
the founder of the Delhi Sultanate. And the scripture says that this is a land where Jawans have ruled and where Tomars have ruled earlier, and now Aibak is ruling it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very organic kind of a thing that whoever had power would come and would be the dominant military force in this region.
Mm-hmm.
This sort of a thing did not impact on the everyday lives of the people. So
Mm-hmm.
the people would continue to do what they were doing. Their allegiances would automatically shift for whoever the new the
Mm-hmm.
victor was. They were used to the idea that somebody would come defeat the existing ruler, and then their allegiance would shift to the victor.
Mm-hmm.
So it was this sort of a political climate induced by its geography,
Mm-hmm.
which made this a very rich region, not only in terms of economics, but in terms of culture, in terms of languages, in terms of religions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see uh, Hinduism, the biggest religion in India, all its holiest places are in this region.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you have Banaras or you have Haridwar, or the way the popular Hinduism is practiced, all their religious places, places of great significance for their religion. Whether it's where Ganga emanates from, Gangotri, it's here.
Mm-hmm.
Those sacred rivers are here. Pilgrimage sites are here. And then when Islam came in this region, unlike you from Tamil Nadu, so you would know how Islam came there.
Mm-hmm.
It was not really through invasion; it was through trade and commerce.
Yeah.
But here in this part, it came as a consequence of invasions from the west, northwest. So the equation of people's, the local people's equation with this new religion was also different. It was shaped by the fact that it was a religion of power, of the powerful. So people who adopted this religion were also those who sought power, which is why you find subsequently a lot of what we now call caste divisions within Islam, that upper caste Muslims and lower caste Muslims. Pasmanda is a famous word now. So a lot of Muslims in this part were upper caste Muslims. They were so large number of them were those who converted from upper caste Hindu communities into Islam, and many of them were those who came from outside. So this created a preponderance of a power structure determined by both class and caste across religions. So this was another peculiarity of this region. And because of this peculiarity, outside Arabia, a lot of thought, a lot of, I would say, philosophical thinking on or ideas which about Islam emanated from this religion, from this region. So whether it was idea of Deoband, Darul Uloom Deoband, which eventually led to a very exclusive kind of Islam, famously now called Deobandi Islam, which to a lot of people also say that this is a kind of Islam which Taliban in Afghanistan follow. So that came from this region. Then another sect emerged here, which was a Barelvi sect. Again, peculiarity of this region. Then you have thinkings like political Islam, which led to the idea of Muslim Brotherhood. So the political Islam also emanated from this region. So Hinduism and Islam, both of them were incubated in this region. And the oldest of them, oldest than both these religions, was Buddhism. So if you see,
that also is from there.
It's from this place, from the Hindi heartland. It's Bihar and UP. So I think the reason all of this was happening here was also because there was so much of communication, there was so much of engagement with outside ideas as well. So which opened the minds of the people who were living here. It opened their minds, made them receptive to not only new ideas, challenging their own previously held ideas, it also opened up their their languages. It increased their vocabulary. And increase of vocabulary also led to emergence of complex ideas, because then you had a mechanism of expressing those ideas. So all of this, I think, contributed to this being a very economically prosperous and socially, culturally, religiously, a very engaging, thriving region of India.
If I could just bring up 3 points here to sort of go to the next bit that I want you to talk about. So, like you said, one of the things that really, like, I have a beef with historians who write of history through empires. Like I said,
Yes.
that's how everybody saw it. But I've read so much Romila Thapar, Irfan Habib, Didi Kosambi growing up, and I thought, okay, telling people stories from the bottom up, or like from culture, trade, and art, and all of that point of view, you see how rich this space has been, right? When there is so much heterodox, sort of syncretic sort of culture that's happening. That's one point. And the second thing is, as you said rightly, growing up in the South, I spent most of my the first 10 years of my life in Kerala and Tamil Nadu, where Islam was a part of our cultural milieu, right? My grandmother was a pious Hindu. She would pray at the local mosque because that was our culture. It was nobody thought that because the way Islam came into the South, it as trade, through business. And so it was very common for us. It was just normal, right? And the third thing is, I've done a lot of research into the colonial moment. I told you about that, especially mid 19th century, early 19th century. So you clearly see how the British start, talking about Hindus and Muslims as two separate entities or peoples. And this whole idea of dividing Indians, dividing the South Asians as Hindus and Muslims, looking at it as sort of monolithic identities. Because when they started, trying to understand who is in a family, sometimes people were Hindus and Muslims in the same family, right? But then people had to pick a side when they had to be put in the registry. So if you could tell me about all of these things and how that sort of shaped the political consciousness, as you said, of like this sort of, looking at it as this versus that, or whatever that is that happened in this time period.
Right. See, if you see the baggage which the British came with, when Christianity was adopted as a religion in the West, they obliterated all evidence of the existing practices. Whether it was paganism or any other. So today you do not see any other religious form in any of the Western countries, because they believed in the righteousness of their faith, and everything else was completely obliterated. So they were used to the idea of one religion, fixed practice of that religion, one book, one language, one culture. Everything was monolith from the kind of society that they came from. When they came to India, they were completely at loss to see this kind of diversity. It was diversity of languages, diversity of culture, clothes, religious practices, everything. And so they just could not understand what they were up against. So they thought then that everything had to be put in a straitjacket. They created these very neat boxes. And when they started to do the first census, because they wanted to, and the census was happening in Britain also. So at the same time, so they were trying to enumerate the numbers, total number of people in all their colonies, to see who fits in what box. And male, female, religion, everything, language. And at that point, they were faced with this diversity in a devastating manner, because all their questionnaires were going waste. People couldn't answer the question they were asking. So that is when they created these specific keys that you ask these specific questions. It's like how you do our examiners today. When you have these board exams, so all the examiners, they're given those keys, how to mark people, which is why you have multiple choice questions, and people who write long essays are always at a loss, because the person who's marking the paper doesn't know what to make of those essays. The keys that they have, these long essays don't fit.
So it's like out of syllabus, or what are you saying?
Out of syllabus, absolutely. So they only know, they just know yes or no answers. So the British did the same thing. They created these very specific questions to which they already prescribed specific answers, and the person who was going to the enumerators were going there, and they were just ticking the right boxes, and that is how they created this knowledge base of Indian society, and that is when even probably we became conscious, because once this knowledge base was created, then they wanted to enforce it all on us, on the people, that now you stay in this category which has been created for you. You cannot have this fluidity of moving from one category to another, or be belonging to both categories.
Yeah.
I think that created this religious consciousness also. And after the first War of Independence, or the rebellion of 1857, in any case, they had realized that two major communities, or broadly speaking, were Hinduism and Islam. And it makes strategic sense that they should be kept aside, away from one another. And a sense of permanent enmity must be brewed, so that they do not come together again. So I think that is how they created this very organized way of governance in India, whereby they were keeping the two communities in permanent hostility to one another, and they were able to effectively rule India despite their limited numbers and I wouldn't say limited power, but limited numbers for sure.
Yeah.
So I think this the impact of this was that we forgot about our own memories. We forgot about our own legacy of these 500, 600 years of living together as a cohesive society, where we did not have too much to agree with one another, but that absence of agreement did not mean that there were sharp disagreements. It did not mean that people were constantly fighting with one another on basis of religion, or on basis of language. That was not happening, because there was so much of interdependence. They were working together, especially after the coming of the Mughals. When this manufacturing started, the small scale manufacturing started. So the manufacturing units had everybody. They were financed by upper caste Hindu people. The workforce was largely Muslims or Dalits. I mean, not Dalits at that time, but outcasts. So that is how they were all functioning. So that economic model was creating social prosperity also. People were, mobility was there. People could move from villages as previous farm laborers, or bonded laborers were able to move to cities, because cities were being created, and cities kind of broke these very strict caste boundaries. I mean, they kind of made them a little more flexible, because you couldn't enforce that sort of rigidity in the towns or cities. So all of these changes had happened in the 14th century onwards, until the British came, and they once again created very neat boundaries.
Which is, I think, something that a lot of people misunderstand about India, right? People think that India has existed in the present the way people are in these whatever categories, have the other categories have been in forever, which is BS, because these things shifted so many times in the past. As you say, when the Mughals came and established these cities, again, there was all of this happening. People, their class and caste and whatever positions shifting, because these were things that could shift even in the past, as you say.
Yes.
So if you could tell me a little about, let's shift to your other book, being, born a Muslim, born a Muslim, Some Truths About Islam in India, where you have a chapter, The Story of Indian Islam. So if you could tell me a little bit about that, and about Sufism, for instance, which is also this beautiful I love Sufi poetry. So, and so to see this sort of syncretic sort of ideas, that the philosophies, as you rightly said, that this is a place in the Hindi heartland and in other parts of India too, where it's sort of mixed together. And it can only, according to me, happen in this part of the world, right? Where these ideas can inform one another. And also the fact that, it's so funny because India, what has like the second or third largest population of Muslims in the world. It's sort of, it's not even like, so when people say things like minority or whatever, it makes me laugh. What does that even mean? So anyway, go on.
Answering the last part first, minority it's referred to as minority only. Uh, One, because numerically they are substantially less than the majority, especially after the partition. So now they're about 14, between 14 to 15%. So that is one of the reasons. The other is the category of minority is not only pertains to the numerical strength of the community, but also the kind of access they have to natural resources. So I think so we when we talk of minorities, that we should also keep that in mind. So now coming to the first part of your question, see. When Islam came to India, as we spoke about this earlier, it came in different ways. In the southern part of the country, especially Kerala and the rest of the coastal India, it came through trade. And trade automatically requires you to have trust because, you have long distance trade and it's not that you're traveling by air. So if you're traveling by those slow moving dhows and small ships or boats, you take you months and months to reach India from Yemen or wherever you're coming from. And then you are spending a few months here buying your stuff and taking it back to where you came from. And similarly for the Indian traders who were going to South Arabia, not Saudi, then Arabia or Yemen or all these parts of the country, of the world, staying there for months and then coming back. And then a lot of work would happen on credit because obviously if you're buying stuff, you would sell it, then take it back. This requires a lot of trust in the other person. So this automatically created some kind of social bonds between the natives at that point in India and the Arabs or the Muslims. So when they became Muslim, they were not Muslims earlier, but once they became Muslim and they came to India, they also started practicing their Islamic faith in these parts. So people here in Kerala or in Tamil Nadu or in coastal Karnataka who were getting acquainted with these people, they were taken aback by this new practice of religion, which they had not seen earlier. Some converted because they were fascinated by that. Some felt that we can adopt certain aspects of this religion, not all aspects. So there was a lot of syncretism that was happening in this part, in the coastal India. Peninsular India, the northern part of India, as we spoke earlier, the religion came here as a consequence of conquests and also Sufis, because a lot of these because Persia was a country of, it was very advanced in terms of society, in terms of administration, language, literature. So all rulers which came from Central Asia, which came from Afghanistan, they were hugely influenced by Persian court culture, which is why Persian became the language of the ruling class in India, and not only in North India but also the southern part of India. In Deccan also, Persian was adopted as a courtly language. The Persian clothes, the long robes and all that became part of courtly behavior.
Yeah.
So, because of this, a lot of Persian administrators came to India for jobs, for employment in the courts, and they were the preferred lot. Sufis also came. So, the early Sufi, the groups which came to India, they came from this region of Persia, Iran, modern day Iran, and parts of Central Asia, where you have the contiguous borders between Iran and Central Asia. So there's a lot of Sufis came from this part, and they brought these influences in food, in their thinking, to this to North India.
Mhm.
And I think the lot Sufis which came to the southern part, you mostly came from Arabia or
Mm.
Yemen or these areas, because their interface with uh, Arabia was greater than the North India. The North Indian
Right.
interface was with Persia. So
Right. Yeah.
these were the different ways Islam came to India, and different because of these different ways of coming to India, its equation with the local population was also different in that sense. As I
Mhm.
mentioned, in North India, it was a religion of power because it came as a consequence of the power.
Mhm.
Sufism was one aspect of it,
Mhm.
but then, except for a few Sufi silsilas or Sufi groups like the Chistiya, and, so a lot of Sufi groups like Naqshbandi,
Mhm.
they did, though they did prefer to align themselves with the power.
Mhm.
They drew their I wouldn't say spiritual power from political power. That would not be correct. But they did not shun political power, unlike the Chistiya Sufis, which who were regarded as more tolerant, more
Right.
inclusive.
Mm.
So they were more inclusive of even music. They embraced music as part of their as part of their devotion. So
Mm.
you that is where the Sufi music came about. So there were few groups, Sufi groups, predominantly the Chistiya group, which is very popular in North India. So you have in Ajmer, Delhi, and Agra. So, so this entire belt, actually the North Indian belt,
Mm.
you have the Chistiya Silsila, which is when we talk of Sufis today, we are, or at least in North India, when we talk of Sufis, we talk about this particular
Mm.
kind of Sufism, because here music was very common. And the famous poet of this region, Amir Khusro, uh,
Mm.
was great friends with Nizamuddin Aulia, Hazrat Nizamuddin
Mm.
Aulia, whose shrine is in Delhi, also was in this region. You know, his mother was half Rajasthani.
Mm.
He lived his life in Delhi, and a lot of the Sufi poetry that we today which we hear as music also, or
Mm.
the qawwalis that we hear, a lot of them came from Amir Khusro's writing. I mean, many of them come from Malaysia and Punjabi Sufis also, but a large number of repertoire of Sufi poetry comes from the early writings of Amir Khusro.
Mm.
So that is how this whole Sufi thing became a very important and a very dominant aspect of Islam in India.
Mhm.
I'll take 2 more minutes to just tell you something. Uh, Unfortunately, what happened was that why a lot of conservative Muslims did not regard Sufism as a bona fide part of Islam, and they started regarding it as renegades or people who were grave worshippers.
Mm.
The reason was that when the West discovered Sufism, when it discovered poetries of Rumi or uh, Hafiz,
Mm.
uh, they de-linked it from religion. Though they were all practitioners of Islam, and their
Mm.
poetry emerged from their devotion for
Mm.
Allah. It was religious poetry. It had a lot of philosophy in it, but the origin of the poetry, the source of the poetry, was their devotion, their
Mm.
uh, their desire for this enhanced form of love
Mm.
between devotee and God. Uh, but when the Western writers discovered them, and when they were being translated into English
Mm.
languages, they removed all traces of Islam from their poetry,
Mm.
and so that is when the Sufi poetry or Sufi writings or music came back to us from the West. We did not think of it as Islamic,
Mm.
so it took a lot of pushback, again, mostly from India, to, or India and Pakistan, I mean, undivided Indian subcontinent, to reclaim this legacy of Sufism as part of our religious practice and not something which is removed from Islam, as not something as a completely different religious
Right.
belief or some completely different religious practice. Uh, so, so now
Yeah.
what we are seeing is that a lot of Muslims kind of take pride in the fact that this is part of our legacy, this is part of our heritage, this music, this poetry.
You're like so full of knowledge. I could just listen to you, but I have next question. But I just want to take something off of what you just said, because in my own research too, because I'm looking at queer South Asian past and how it was destroyed in this particular like mid 19th century. Again, exactly what you say of how when middle class morality and the sort of Christian idea of what it means to be good and all of that came to India and through British colonialism,
Yes.
a lot of middle class Muslims and Hindus, they destroyed all these things in their own religions that sort of did not align with this purity, of, religion, right? So they thought all of this is too contraband. Let's just sort of get rid of it because it's not aligning with that. So that was one thing. And the other one was, if you could tell me about how, I have friends who tell me, Hindi speakers, because my Hindi is really bad, who tell me that if you took away Urdu from Hindi, Hindi would be so boring. Like you cannot speak Hindi without, it's so romantic. It's only beautiful because of that. So the language aspect and also the Hindi and the Hinduization of this identity, right? Because like we said, obviously in that time period when one became the other or we're dividing everything, when this idea of what is Hindu, what is India, Hindustan, whatever, if you could tell me when that in your opinion, when that happened and when that shift occurred in our own mindsets.
Okay. So the first part you're talking about our history or our traditions of uh, living in harmony with the pair people. See, if you, I don't know how much of Sufi poetry you have read. Uh, there is a character of Saki, which is a recurring character, which is a
Mm.
person who pours your drink.
Mm.
And the writer or the poets who write these poetry, they mostly they express their great love, and sometimes that love borders on sexual
Mm.
love for
Yeah.
the Saki. And
Mm.
even I, when I was growing up and when I read this poetry, I used to imagine Saki in my mind as a beautiful girl, you
Mm.
know, a very nymph-like woman who's probably, just barely covered her bosom and she's partially naked. The way the beauty of Saki has been described,
Mhm.
and if the famous a lot of poetry. I mean, I'm not going to recite them here on your show, but they say that if the Saki turns the face away or the Saki doesn't look at me in the eye while pouring
Mhm.
my drink, I will put down my drink. I won't have my drink. And the drink here is not drink as an alcohol. This is like the elixir of life. This is a drink
Mm.
which connects you to the Almighty. So
Mhm.
the sake in that sense was the means of this communion. So
Mhm.
that is how elevated status. I mean, it is not just sexual love. It is not just
Mm.
uh, ethereal love or any sort of love.
Mm.
It was a very important aspect of your devotion to Allah that you have
Mm.
this person in between.
Mhm.
It took me a long time to realize that Saki was a boy. Saki was not a woman.
Yeah.
And because in the bars, in the medieval time,
Mhm.
how would a woman be allowed inside a bar to serve
Mhm.
alcohol? So in this framing of a description of a bar or a mehkhana, so the
Yeah.
person who's pouring your drinks is a young boy.
Mhm.
So so this so the love for young boys,
Mhm.
I mean, it's not acceptable now in the modern society. Also, I mean, we talk of consent and everything, but you see, in the imagination at that point,
Mm.
it was not considered either against your religion or it was not considered illegal. I mean,
Mhm.
there were no social laws against it, and
Mhm.
nobody. It was not considered immoral. So
Mm.
this is the legacy we have. Similarly, if you see the Indian religious texts, if you read the Mahabharata, there are very critical, important characters who are not defined by their gender. So this is part of our legacy. But when this Puritanism of the British came upon us, so we started looking back at our own history uh, with some amount of embarrassment, and we felt that we are so primitive, and everything in our history, because of the British, it instilled this sense of backwardness, this lack of evolution, lack of civilization in our own cultures. So we shunned whatever we were told to shun, and we embraced whatever we were told to embrace. So I think this has been the impact of colonialism. We talk about in terms of its physical impact, its economic impact, how they looted India, how they enriched themselves and all that. But we very rarely talk about its impact on our psyche, on our very thinking, our attitude to our lives, our belief systems, our uh, our our legacies, our histories. So they wherever they, I mean, they tried everywhere, but in India they could not succeed to the extent they succeeded. Let's say, I'm not talking of British alone, but colonial past. To the extent they succeeded in, let's say, South America, in effacing their complete history, their culture, their practices, everything. In India, obviously, because our history and our society has been so I would say strong from within. Our core was so strong that they could not completely efface it, but they did influence the way we think about ourselves. And the consequence of that is that even today, if you look at the right wing Hindu thinking, the entire Hindutva universe, their thinking, their approach to their country and to their past, it stems from uh, a sense of inferiority, which is why they keep talking about reclaiming the past glory. Because they feel that at some point in our past, we were a great country, and all of that is no longer there because the outsiders, the Muslims came and they took away our glory, because this is how the British has taught us. They divided Indian history in these very neat brackets of ancient, medieval, modern. And ironically, ancient India is Hindu India, medieval India is Muslim India, and modern India is British India, not Christian India. So they've been very careful about this distinction also. So we also do not regard British rule as Christian rule. We do not regard the Sunday holiday as a Christian religious holiday. So there's universalization of Christian practices. So we think of Christmas as a secular holiday. And if somebody says, "Oh, why are you celebrating Christmas?" Everybody would immediately jump on you and say, "Oh, you're a communal person." But that is how they have universalized their practices, in the way that they have very subtly taken religion away from it. But essentially, they are all religious occasions. It's another matter that our minds are now so programmed to think in a particular way that we cannot think any other way. So once they are now finally coming to the language part. So once they decided that they wanted to create a teaching tools for their administrative staff who were coming from Britain to rule India, to administer India, they tried to create they tried to create readers, or learning material for their personnel. And while they were doing this, they suddenly realized that, okay, in this big compendium of Hindustani, there are two different religions. There are two different languages. There is one language, I mean, they both are same, but there's one language which has a preponderance of Persian and Arabic words, and there's another language uh, which has preponderance of Sanskrit. So why don't we keep, create a division? Let's say this one language with preponderance of Sanskrit should be the language of Hindus because they are drawing from Sanskrit texts, and Sanskrit texts were basically the religious texts. Similarly, the language which had preponderance of Arabic and Persian should be shifted to the side and create and be regarded as a language for Muslims. So once this division happened, people who aspired to political power or people who aspired to influence within the British India, they also threw their weight behind two different languages, Hindi and Urdu, and associated them with their religions. So if on the one hand you have Sir Syed Ahmad Khan talking about Urdu and primacy of Urdu, and Urdu being a language of sophisticated people, polished people and all that, and also a language of Muslims. So by extension, Muslims are the sophisticated people, educated, learned. So on the other hand, you had people like Bhartendu Harishchandra, the great poet from Banaras, throwing his weight behind Hindi and saying Urdu is a language of nautch girls and the wives and kotas and all that, and Hindi is a language of erudite people, of culture. So that's how language actually induced religious divisions also. Once again, credit goes to the British India.
Yeah.
I for everything else.
Which is what really interests me, right? Because like in Tamil, for instance, like even in school books, I remember studying, we had literally we had Islamic poets in Tamil writing poetry. We had Christian poets, and it was just normal for us to read. Like it was not like this is the language of any one religion. It's a language of all these religions, you know. So why is it that in the Hindi heartland, like we're coming back to also, you know, you speak about in your book about how this was like the place where the satyagraha was sort of the impact was very high, and how Gandhi's satyagraha really grew there and all of that. So why do you think it is that in this particular part of India was a place where all of this could, you know, be sort of executed in that manner?
See, the one reason was that this region was where the 1857 revolt happened. This was the battlefield for that. This was the heart of the Mughal Empire. So, from the British perspective, also, this was the heart of political power in India. Though, I'm sorry, though the British, they had, their complete sway in Calcutta, now West Bengal, in Madras. So, despite that, the political power, they in their mind also was here in the Hindi heartland, was here in Delhi, because this was the seat of the Mughal emperor. So when they wanted to strengthen their hold on the rest of the country, this is a region they wanted to subdue first and foremost. So from Bengal, they started moving westward. So they moved into Bihar, and then they moved into UP, which is other than these areas. And then they started meddling with the Rajputs in the Rajasthan region. So this area was important for from the political point of view, not only for the British, but also for the nationalists who were resisting the British, and this nationalist movement which developed in India. So though the early Congress party, the early people who held the party, the Indian National Congress, came from Bengal or from Bombay, these areas, until it found a foothold in UP and Bihar, in this region. It could not really create a mass mobilization of people. So when Gandhi came back from South Africa and he opened the ashram in Gujarat, he was also kind of helmed in Gujarat. I mean, there was no great movement of people happening there. People would come to his ashram, and he was limited to there. He was touring India, trying to understand what was happening wherever. But the the idea that actually people can be mobilized in large number against the British, that idea happened here. So the
Mhm.
first movement which created the first satyagraha was here in Champaran in Bihar, where
Mhm.
he did nothing. He just went and collected signatures of the people and collected their petitions, people who were indigo workers,
Mhm.
and he collected the petitions against the British. He no violence happened, no mobilization, nothing. It was just that, and that itself created such a groundswell of support for him that he realized that uh, there is a mechanism by which you can create uh, mass support uh, amongst the poorest against the colonial power. So
Mhm.
that is why the Hindi heartland was very, very critical for this idea of freedom movement. Because any movement, unless you have a mass movement happening on the streets, on the roads, everywhere, where, uh, it cannot succeed. If it's happening in pockets, something here, something there, it will not impact upon the ruling forces. I mean, the British government at that point.
Mhm.
Also, because the British government by this time was in Delhi, the Delhi was the capital. So once again, the heartland became the center of the movement, the freedom movement,
Mhm.
because the resistance had to be against the seat of power, which was Delhi.
Mm. Which is very interesting, isn't it? Because coming to the present now, what the Hindi heartland represents in that sense, economically though it's sort of impoverished, isn't it? But obviously, in terms of the seats they have in the parliament, it's very high. So it's very confusing as to what that all means right now to me.
See, the impoverishment part was again a consequence of colonialism.
Mm.
Uh, the two economic pillars in the heartland was agriculture and small scale manufacturing. So
Mm.
even today, the this region doesn't have big industries because
Mm.
it was traditionally home to small scale manufacturing, mostly by handcrafts. So
Mhm.
whether it was weaving or tying a tie dye, uh, dealing with all aspects of textile, or it was brass or footwear or glassware. So all of this was happening in this region, and this was a source of the economic prosperity of this region. The other was the primary sector, which was agriculture, and this because of the preponderance of rivers here, uh, Ganga, Jamuna, and a lot of other rivers. So this was agriculturally a very fertile region and was called the granary of India. It was
Mm.
producing so much of crops. But when the British came, they had no interest in food crops because they were
Mm.
not eating it. So they had
Mm.
no idea about what to do with that. So they shifted more and more cultivable areas into cash crops.
Mm.
And once they discovered the advantage or the financial windfall of indigo, they forced a lot of farmers, especially in Bihar and eastern UP,
Mhm.
to do indigo cultivation. Similarly, opium, because they had a huge market of
Mm.
opium in China, which they were forcing it down their
Mm.
throats. So a lot of farmlands were converted to opium farming.
Mhm.
Similarly, sugarcane, because crystal sugar was a, a luxury item, a luxury
Mm.
product, and they had sugar mills in UK. So they to feed to those sugar mills, they forced a lot of farmlands into sugarcane cultivation. So
Mhm.
basically, all of this was happening at the cost of your indigenous farming, which
Mhm.
was the source of not only feeding the people but also earning money.
Mhm.
So it was a very important aspect of the economy of this region, and
Mhm.
all of that was completely ruined. Now,
Mm.
after 1857, they also wanted to, you know, ensure that this sort of a rebellion doesn't happen again.
Mm.
So, a lot of people who they thought were potential rebels, I mean, those who rebelled or those who indulged in violence were killed, and
Hung.
there were mass deportations.
Yeah.
Yes, there were hung, and mass deportations happened.
Yeah.
But those who they deemed as potential rebels in the future, they were sent away to their colonies as indentured labor. So you had a lot of Indians going to Madagascar, to West Indies, uh, as far as Fiji Islands. So this also took away a lot of, lot of uh, uh, craftspeople from here. Because what used to happen earlier was that in the farming season, people used to go and till their land. And in the non-farming season, they used to come to the cities and work in the factories. So there was the craft which they acquired working in the factories, they would pass on to their children. But now, when the economic structure was so bad, and the British were after them, they were being punished for their role in the rebellion. A lot of them, in any case, wanted to escape. So this mass migration of uh, trained manpower happened. So this led to the erosion of this learning also, erosion of uh, this ability to weave, ability to carve or cast iron or do whatever. So this was a loss of your talent which happened at that point. And so that was one aspect. The other aspect was agriculture, because your land had been bleached dry by continuous cultivation of cash crops.
Right.
So this led to abject poverty in this region. And even when minerals were discovered in parts of, let's say, Bihar, in Jharkhand or Rajasthan, they were not uh, they were not they did not become part of the local economy. So if they were mining iron ore, so the iron ore would be taken out of, let's say, Jharkhand, now Jharkhand, at that time parts of Bihar, would be taken out to their foundries elsewhere. So it's not that uh, this discovery of iron ore was benefiting the region or the people there. And this is unfortunate. It is unfortunate that even after independence, our successive governments, they did not have the imagination to think of a different model of economics. So they followed the British model. So, for instance, after independence, they created uh, townships, let's say for coal. So they created a township like Dhanbad, or earlier before that, Jamshedpur. So these are islands. These were not townships which were part of the larger economy of that region. So a town like Jamshedpur or a city like Jamshedpur is an island by itself. The people who are working there, they come from all over India,
Right.
and before that, before independence, all over the world. And they were living in this cocoon, unmindful of what was outside the periphery of Jamshedpur, the tribal belts, the rural people, the poor. So, our so in Hindi belt, you have pockets of the prosperous pockets, but they have no impact on the larger region. Now, in terms of agriculture, also because of the again with a slightly skewed policies of the government, uh, land reforms did not happen in full measure. So parts of Uttar Pradesh saw very good land reforms. So it led to empowerment of people, of a lot of communities, including Dalit communities. But the land reforms did not happen in Bihar. So that sense of feudalism continued to exist, leading to vicious violence, feudal violence, caste violence, class violence. So all of this has contributed to the idea of, not idea, all of this has contributed to uh, persistent economic impoverishment of this region. And because so much of politics had happened here even before independence, so people have in this part have been politically empowered without that political empowerment leading to economic empowerment. So the politicians also realize that it's okay to disconnect the two. So a political empowerment need not lead to economic empowerment. We need not deliver on economics as long as people think that they're empowered politically. So the caste-based politics started happening here.
Mm-hmm.
And if you see uh, these two states, UP and Bihar, you'll see the multiplicity of parties and all caste-specific parties. So there is a party of Dalits, there is party of Yadavs, there is party of Kurmis, different caste groups, and within in UP is even worse. I mean, there are uh, three people party, there are five people party, only representing one particular caste group.
Oh my God.
So once all of this was happening, and it continues to happen today, I think there is no incentive for the politicians also to
Mm.
do anything for more than that for the people. And after economic liberalization and with the coming of the you know multinationals here, uh, the tertiary sector became very important. Now, tertiary sector jobs required certain kind of education, certain kind of qualifications, uh, and because of poor social uplift of the people here,
Mm.
poor educational abilities here, so this region lost out on that. And
Mm.
places like Bombay or South India, they managed to, they had the early bird advantage as far as getting absorbed in multinational companies or moving
Mm.
out of India for professional reasons happened.
Yeah.
So all of this has contributed. I mean, it's a very long answer. I'm sorry I've taken a
No,
lot of.
no, I want to know because honestly, the contradictions don't make sense, right? Like you said, there is so much of this political sort of space and the canvas that they're given, but there's no economic sort of advantages that come with it. What sense does that make? I mean, if you're the place that has all of this political power, then where's the economic stuff to sort of you know uh, dovetail that, right? Like what sense does that make? So, which is something that's bothered me always. So it's good that I could understand a little bit better from that what you said. So for my last question for you, which is more contemporary, because you're the editor of Force magazine, I want to talk to you about Indo-Pakistan relations right now. Your thoughts on that and Operation Sindoor. I mean, first of all, the name itself is, I don't know, problematic according to me. And I think on Twitter recently that these army officers were on Kaun Banega Crorepati, was it like the
Yes, yes,
Amitabh Bachchan show talking
yes.
about the? I mean, it's like also because we live in such a obviously Trump is in power in America. I live in Canada. So this is like this whole drama happening. It's like a reality show where even before anybody else knows, Trump himself will tell you the strategy of how he's going to bomb Iran or whatever. So, everything feels so bizarre. And to also see this happening now in India where people are discussing, I mean, what is the strategy here or what's going on?
See, a lot of people say that India, Pakistan, the problem of India between India and Pakistan is a lot of distrust.
Mm,
I think that is not the main problem. The problem goes back to our partition
mm,
uh, and the Kashmir issue, which is the
mm,
elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about it. They uncomfortable talking about it. But the hostility between the two countries, or the hostility
mm,
of Pakistan towards India, goes back to 47, and the fact that Kashmir acceded to India and not
mm,
Pakistan. When all logic said that it should have acceded to Pakistan. The majority was Muslim population. It had greater economic connectivity, greater infrastructural connectivity with Pakistan than with India.
mm,
So logically, that should have happened, but that did not happen for different reasons. That's another subject by itself. So
mm,
the root of our problem, it has been that all the wars that we have fought have been on Kashmir, except
mm,
1971, which happened because of
mm,
Pakistan's atrocities, West Pakistan's atrocities in East Pakistan, and
mm,
mass massacres and gross rapes, and that the Pakistan army
mm,
was indulging in towards the Bengalis of East Pakistan.
mm,
So India intervened and Bangladesh was created. So except for this one war, all our wars with Pakistan have been on Kashmir.
Mhm.
If you see Operation Sindoor, recent operation has also been about Kashmir. The trigger was Kashmir, and this is what led to the government of India responding to Pakistan. If you want to go back a little bit, then you see in 2019 we did Operation Balakot because of the massacre of CRPF personnel, which again happened in Kashmir. Uh, a little before that, in 2016, we had that Uri attack, which led to that film Uri, and the famous sentence "How's the Josh," which became popular because of that. Uri against Kashmir. So that Uri attack, and which led to that so-called surgical strikes against Kashmir. So basically, the the root of our uh, non-existent relations with Pakistan is the unresolved Kashmir issue.
Mm.
We do not want to accept it. The government of India has said there is no Kashmir issue, so nobody in India wants to talk about it. So it's a good thing that we are in denial, but denial doesn't mean that it helps you achieve
Mm.
your objectives. Now, I completely agree with you. The name Sindoor itself is very problematic, and the ironically, the prime minister took great pride in saying that he gave this name. So once again, this is how patriarchy defines all aspects of our lives, and we don't even
Mm.
realize what is happening. Everybody takes great pride in Sindoor because Sindoor of the women was, taken
Phew.
away here. So now we are going to restore that. So really bad. And I don't know if you're aware of this. In a very ill-conceived move, the government was sending out sindoors to all women to commemorate
Oh my
Sindoor.
God.
So it was
I
being
didn't know
sent
that.
from the prime minister's, prime minister said ki Sindoor will be sent to women. And then suddenly somebody woke up and said, what are you saying? In Hinduism, Sindoor is given by the husband. How can the government give Sindoor? And
Yeah.
then the plan was aborted. But that is how, that hubris, patriarchy, everything combines, and it makes you completely, uh, I don't want to use a harsh word, but it makes you completely oblivious to everything that is happening around. So
Mm-hmm.
our problem with Pakistan will remain as long as this elephant remains in the room. Unless we
Mm.
address this elephant, unless we start talking about it, we cannot even have any kind of half decent conversation
Mm.
towards some kind of mechanism of existing in peace. I mean, we
Mm.
need not be the best of friends, but at least we can coexist without this kind of, permanent state of animosity.
Mm.
Now, the government has said that Operation Sindoor has not ended. It has only been suspended, which means we are still in the state of war with Pakistan. Which means anytime the government can say, "Okay, let's start the attack again." So this kind of permanent state of war, how it impacts the country, it's very difficult to even put it in words. We are as a society we are getting increasingly militarized. The idea of three military officers from Army, Air Force, Navy going on a reality show and talk about Sindoor and talk about the army and what great things have been done. Uh, that once again, keeps the people in that move of agitation, and that hostility is reinforced. That our enemy is not just the government of Pakistan or the military of Pakistan. Pakistan itself is our enemy. So the people are our enemy. So we should not have any people to people contact with them. Forget cricket, forget collaboration on films or music or anything. Even communication, people, they're divided families. And for a very long time, and until I suppose, until maybe a few months ago, until since this Pahalgam attack, a lot of Indian Muslims would marry their family members in Pakistan. So either their daughters would be married to their cousins in Pakistan, or their sons would be married to their cousins, and so the women would come from Pakistan and live in India as brides, wives, or Indian daughters from here would be going and living there. So very common. I mean, most families, because they had divided families, somebody had migrated to Pakistan in 47, somebody migrated later. So there is so much of people to people contact. All that contact is now has been jeopardized. Families cannot visit one another.
Yeah.
There's so much
Yeah.
of suspicion on all sides. So
Mm.
I think as a country which is trying to be a major power, which is
Mm.
trying to be one of the big influencers in the Committee of Nations, which is
Mhm.
trying to be the bridge between North and South, between the developed and the developing world, and
Mm.
which actually once upon a time was this leader of the developing world after independence, when we had no power at all, no military power to speak of, but we had that moral authority to become the leaders of the underdeveloped world, the colonized world. From there to the present moment, uh, it's a terrible downfall.
I
And
just want to say that, we can even go back to the fact that we shouldn't even be separate countries in the first place, which
yes,
is obviously a result of British colonialism. And I have friends, in the UK where I've spent many, many years, who are giving up their Indian citizenship, and they'd say that now I can visit Pakistan with my British passport, without
yes.
any of these. And that's the saddest thing, that now the British can go to India and Pakistan, but Indians cannot go to Pakistan. What is that? It doesn't make any sense, does it?
No, absolutely not. And just see, we have so much in common. It's a language. Uh,
Mm,
Most Indians I know, they love Pakistani television serials, those dramas,
mm,
and all Pakistanis, they love Indian films.
mm.
Our favorite actresses are uh, you know, they're border agnostics. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure Shah Rukh Khan is very popular in Pakistan,
yeah, yeah,
as Fawad Khan is popular in India.
yeah.
So, singers, you look at
Mm,
Mehdi Hasan or Iqbal Banu or Malika Akhtar.
mm.
Uh,
And also historical sites, right? Because the stuff that Indians are proud of, like the Indus Valley sites, are all in Pakistan, and all the stuff that Islam is proud of is in India. I
in
mean, it's
India,
just.
yeah, and the religious sites also. You see
Mm,
the Sikh religious sites are there in Pakistan. Uh,
mm,
I remember when I was growing up, a lot of people used to come, every year at one point there is a season where this course happens in the dargahs. This Chishtiya
mm,
dargahs that I'm talking about in Ajmer or at Delhi, Nizamuddin
mm,
Aulia in Delhi and Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti in Ajmer. So the course is this annual festival that happens in
mm,
these dargahs. So they happen one after another. So there is like a proper circuit tree of these festivals which happen there.
mm,
Lot of people from Pakistan, they used to come to do this circuit.
mm.
So
Yeah.
there was a time where they would come especially for this, because
Mm,
they had so much of faith in these dargahs.
mm.
But now obviously that is not possible.
I think I really want to know your thoughts on Gandhi and Jinnah and so many other things, but maybe another time. But I think to end our conversation, if you can just tell me a little bit about your thoughts on how, like as you said, if India wants to be the sort of beacon of, I don't know, leader of, the developing world or the global South or whatever it is, how is it that we can foster peace in the region? Because especially the world is going bizarre right now. So, how do you see peace forming in South Asia?
I think the first step towards peace would be to start talking with Pakistan and start
Mm-hmm.
talking on the Kashmir issue.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to my mind, should be the starting point. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, I don't mind saying this. My ultimate objective that I want to see in this region, in South Asia, is that we have soft borders. We don't need hard borders. We have so much of history. We our languages are similar. It's not just India, Pakistan. Look at Bangladesh. I mean, Bangla is
Mm,
spoken there, Bangla is spoken in India. Look
mm,
at food, look at clothes, everything. Religious practices. Nepal, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan,
mm,
all of us, Sri Lanka, all of us, we have so much in common in terms of shared history,
mm,
shared eating habits, to a large extent, languages. I mean,
mm,
of course, Sinhalese is very different, but so many people speak Tamil also
mm,
in Sri
mm,
Lanka. So there's so much which holds us together. Why
mm,
must we have hard borders? Why
mm,
must we divide and keep our people in perpetual state of division? You know what is
mm,
happening in India now? They are looking for people who speak Bangla because they
mm,
suspect that all Bangla speaking people are from Bangladesh. And there's been a case of a man who was he was from West Bengal.
mhm,
He was working in somewhere, I'm forgetting, either Gujarat or Maharashtra.
mhm,
I think maybe Gujarat. He was employed there as a laborer, and
mhm.
he was rounded up by the police, and he was forced across the border into Bangladesh. And
And he was
after,
Indian.
and he was an Indian. And then he finally, BSF allowed him to cross the border and come inside India.
Oh my
So
God.
this is the kind of xenophobia we have perpetuated because of being at war with all our neighbors uh, for no rhyme or reason. So
Mm,
I think we need to start a conversation, and because our most difficult relationship is with Pakistan, so let's start the conversation with Pakistan first,
mm.
and then I'm sure that will have a cascading effect on our relations with everybody else.
Mm-hmm. I think that's beautifully put, Ghazala. I think that sort of summarizes, everything that we've spoken about. I think that to like for me, I'm a decolonizer. So, you know how the far right in India has like hijacked that word also. And
Absolutely.
it's, and decolonizing essentially means we're all the same. They don't even get that idea. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. I think it was a pleasure talking to you.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much. And I think I've spoken very candidly with you because you made me speak like this. You have some kind of positive energy which encourages this kind of conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Ghazala.